From Jack the Ripper to the murder of Sarah Everard, the safety of women is something that has always been threatened yet never given attention. Now, with the issue of women's safety finally being at the forefront of the news agenda in 2021, it is something that women have had to deal with for decades. Women across the globe are joining forces to say enough is enough. We learned from yesterday, we will work today to make a change for tomorrow.
From August the 7th to September the 10th in 1888, Jack the Ripper terrorised the Whitechapel area, killing at least 5 prostitutes, mutilating their bodies in an unusual manner. Prostitution was only illegal in the area if it caused a public disturbance. If a working girl died or was murdered, it was never discussed or reported in society or the press. The reality was that ladies of the night were subject to physical attacks, some even resulting in death. Ted Bundy was a 1970s serial murderer, rapist and necrophiliac. He was executed in Florida's electric chair in 1989. Bundy confessed to the 36 killings of young women across several states in the 1970s, but experts believe that the final tally may be closer to 100 or more. The exact number of women Bundy killed will never be known. He often lured his victims into his car by pretending to be injured and asking for their help, then proceeded to rape his victims before beating them to death.
Theodore Robert Bundy, you are charged, indictment, 2 counts burglary, 2 counts murder in the first degree, 3 counts attempted murder in the first degree. Design or intent to effect the death of said Lisa Levy.
My chance to talk to the press.
Contrary to section 78204 Florida statute.
I'll plead not guilty right now.
And your grand juror is being present.
In 1981, Peter Sutcliffe was identified as the serial killer that the British press had dubbed the Yorkshire Ripper. From 1975 through 1980, Sutcliffe committed at least 13 murders and 7 other brutal assaults on women in northern England. As terror spread through the area, the search for Sutcliffe was derailed by problems that included the lack of respect for the many victims who were sex workers.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home. I urge you, at this moment of national emergency, to stay at home, protect our NHS, and save lives.
England is to face a new lockdown starting on Thursday, scheduled to last a month.
It comes exactly a year to the day since the first lockdown began, marking the start of the biggest and longest national crisis.
The number of domestic abuse offences recorded by police in England and Wales has increased during the pandemic. Police recorded 259,324 domestic abuse offences between March and June, 7% up on the same period in 2019. During and after the first lockdown in April, May and June, roughly 1/5 of offences involved domestic abuse. In April, May and June, which covers the period during and immediately after the first national coronavirus lockdown, domestic abuse offences took up a larger proportion of all offences compared to previous years. Around 20% of all offences recorded by police were flagged as domestic abuse related during these months. Compared to less than 15% in previous years, the number of offences also rose each month. An estimated 1.6 million women and 757,000 men experienced domestic abuse through 2020. Women aged 16 to 19 years were more likely to be victims of any domestic abuse in the last year than women aged 25 years and over.
The government did act quite late because domestic abuse isn't like a new thing. It's not something that has just come into light. It's been going on for years, and the fact that it took a pandemic for the government to act on it it's embarrassing, really. Whereas in the past, it was probably easier to probably seek asylum and seek refuge. In terms of now, it's harder because we're in a pandemic, so it's like, you know, people aren't supposed to be mixing households, and so I think it's quite difficult for people to get out as like the grand scheme of it. I mean, in terms of our generation, we see a lot of things on social media and we post things online that it's like people you can contact, people you can reach out to, but I don't think we're educated enough. I don't know really the whole grand scheme of what I can do. Like, I don't feel like as a society we're educated enough. Like, as women, we aren't taught how to really protect ourselves, and we aren't really taught about we hear about like gender-based crimes, and we hear about domestic abuse. Men and women should be taught the signs, how to deal with it, how you can get out, where there's a safe place to go. And so to be taught that in school and stuff would to educate you for further life and to make you sit down and think, wait, in school they taught us that this isn't healthy. Recently, obviously, there was a whole thing of the big percentage of women who had been sexually assaulted, and I saw a lot of comments from men in particular, not to say it's all men, but it was a big selection of them, and they were saying, don't worry, you're too ugly, you won't get sexually assaulted, or you were too ugly for that, are you sure you're not making it up? Like, it's things like that. There is still such a stigma for people who are coming out. Someone's like sharing their story shouldn't turn around to people blaming the victim. It's very morally and socially corrupt.
The 33-year-old was last seen over a week ago walking home from a friend's house in Clapham in South London. Today, police continued searching woodland in Ashford in Kent, where human remains have been found.
A man has been charged with the kidnap and murder of Sarah Everard. His name is Wayne Cousins.
Sarah Everard took all the precautions necessary that night that young girls are taught to keep themselves safe. She wore bright clothing, she was on the phone to her boyfriend at the time, and she walked along well-lit main roads. But yet it still wasn't enough. Adding to the fear is of course the fact that the killer was a member of the Metropolitan Police Force, a figure that women would look to for protection in those situations. Sarah's murder has triggered conversations that should have happened long ago, ones where women are voicing their safety fears and the world is actually listening. Women do not feel safe, and over half the population is making a conscious effort not to be assaulted or abducted at all times. When a case like Sarah's is reported, therefore, it is impossible not to feel hopeless. Social media has seen a massive support from men coming forward to ask how they can help make women feel safer on the streets at night. This is progress, and just by having this conversation, we are making great change. However, it was disheartening to see the recent trending hashtag #NotAllMen on social media. By using this harmful hashtag, it is derailing the conversation and twisting the wave of women speaking up about street violence and turning it into man-hating. We are not saying that all men attack women, but what we are saying is that all women feel unsafe. Instead of getting defensive and deflecting the important conversation to protect your own image perception, help us tackle the problem.
There are 5 key areas where gender-sensitive measures should be reinforced. First, political leaders, opinion makers, public personalities, in particular men, must take the lead in condemning violence against women and use their influence on public opinion to promote the shift in violence against women. In addition, prosecution of offenders should be made more effective. Women victims of violence are not safe as long as the offenders are free to offend again. In many cases ending in death, the victims had already suffered and denounced previous violence perpetrated by the same offender without receiving adequate protection. This is where two other key factors come into play: the police and health professionals. As they are usually the first to encounter situations of violence against women, they need constant training to recognise it and to provide women with gender-sensitive help and care. Special attention should be paid to the particular vulnerability of migrant women who are less likely to report an incident to the police for various reasons, including resident status and previous bad experience with foreign police. The last element, arguably a pivotal one, is education. European states have to invest more in all forms of education and awareness raising, starting from early childhood, if they really want to come to terms with the root causes of violent male behaviour, which is often based on cultures of machismo and ingrained patterns of patriarchy. Without education, all other measures aimed at stamping out violence against women cannot succeed.